you doing? Back again. I want to do a short video about coincidence. Or I call it movie coincidences. You know, you watch a movie and you say, oh, that happened to me. You know, people say that. Well, mine was kind of reverse. Happened a long time ago, and I've told people this, you know, this related, you know, what happened to them. Of course, they say it's a story, but it's not a fish story. It happened. And what's even stranger is before it happened, had a slight coincidence happen. I lived in this old house in a city in upstate New York, and I was watching a movie. And I was in this apartment on the third floor, and it kind of was like the house was situated on a street at the head of the other street, so it was kind of like at the T, the top of the T. And I'm watching this movie, and I'm watching the scene, and I'm saying, wait a second. I said, that looks familiar. I said, wait a second, that's the house I'm sitting in right now. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And it turned out they had just filmed this movie a couple of years ago, and they filmed it right there. I was not aware of it. And so that was just a little interesting thing. You know, fast forward a few months later, and I'm watching another movie. This is an Alfred Hitchcock movie. The only movie he ever made that was a true story to it. It was with Henry Fonda, and it was called The Wrong Man. And it was about it was about a musician, Manny, I can't think of his last name. His name was Manny, and he was a musician. I believe he lived in the Bronx. And his wife, I think her name was Rose or something, had a bad wisdom tooth. And, you know, even like today, a lot of places don't give you dental. And certainly as a musician, he had to pay for it out of pocket. While musicians always, you know, kind of like go for the gigs, so he didn't always have, you know, money in the bank. So he went to his insurance company to borrow money against his life insurance. You know, that's what he had paid in. And I think it was like $300 or something like that. And when he got to the insurance office, a couple of people were acting really weird towards him, and he didn't know why. And later he would find out, because after he left the insurance, he went home to give them the money so she could go to the dentist, and the next thing he knows, within a couple hours, the police are knocking on his door. And they asked him if they want to talk to him. They would take him downtown. They asked him a bunch of questions. They asked him to write out some stuff on a piece of paper. And the next thing you know, he's being locked up. And he was locked up for quite a while. I mean, they were already starting to go to trial and all this. And they had been waiting for months to go to trial and all that. And it turns out when they were asking him to write, not only did they ask him to write, but they also asked him to go to a couple of places. I think it was a store and the insurance office to walk past these people. And they were doing, you know, it was like a lineup. He was getting identified. And when they asked him to write down some words, they asked him to write down the word drawer. Like, you open the drawer, and he wrote D-R-A-W, like draw. And it turned out that whoever had done these robberies, that's how they had wrote the word drawer, you know, as draw. So, just went on, like I said, for a long time, and he was about to go to trial, and didn't look good. He was looking like he was going to get convicted. And then there was another robbery, and the police caught the robber. And they were quite amazed when they caught this robber, because this robber looked just like the guy that they had in jail. And when they put the two together, they could see that they looked like they were separated at birth. They were like almost like twins. So obviously, this Manny the musician was not the robber. It was somebody else. So eventually he was let off. You know, but it was such an interesting story that somebody had put in a magazine, I think in a novel or a book, I mean, or you know, some kind of short story or something. And Hitchcock wanted to, decided to make it into a movie with Henry Fonda. So I watched this movie. I'd never seen it before. And I was like, wow, this is really good. Well, I'm a night owl, always have been, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning when I went on, and I think it finished like almost 5 o'clock. And I was so wired from watching the movie, excited. I was drinking too much tea. I decided to go for a walk to the park. So I went to the walk in the park, and like I said, it was just about sunrise. And I'm sitting there hanging out, and I see a cop car circling around me. I said, okay. He was way over on the other road, and then another one comes back again. This is on the inner road, like a little bit closer. And then they start going around the roads like right near me. I'm like, okay, circling around. Then all of a sudden, one of them just drives right up to me. I mean, literally, like, almost ran over my feet. I was like, okay. Do they take being in the park, a little before sunrise, or at sunrise that seriously? Because that's the only thing I could think of. I was like, wow, they're strict. It turns out, no. They asked me a bunch of questions, and I asked, they asked me what I was doing there. I said, well, I was going for a walk. And they said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm so-and-so, and, here's my address. It was on my permit, which at that time, there was no photo. So he looks at it. Oh, where's my... And he says, what time is it now? He says, oh, you don't live here. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, at the time, I had lived in a neighborhood that was primarily African American. And I was in the minority. And there was, some Hispanic people, and there was some Caucasian people, but mostly, I would say 90% of them were African American. Apparently, he didn't believe that a white person lived in a black neighborhood. And he argued with me for like a whole minute. He was like, no, until I showed him another piece of paper that showed my address. And he let that one go. And he asked me, do I want to take a ride? And I was like, why would I take a ride with you? And he says, well, we're just down the street. It'll make it easier. He said, we can get this straightened out. And I was like, well, what's to straighten out? I was 19 years old at the time, so I was like, okay. So he said, all right, let's go get it straightened out. So I'm wondering what's going on. I'm in the back of the police car, and first time I was ever in a police car. And I was like, I know I hadn't done anything wrong, so I was a little nervous, but obviously, but I was like, proceeded to tell the police officer driving the car about the movie I was watching, and the coincidence of what is going on right now. And he laughed about it a little bit, and then as he pulled up to the building, this tall apartment building, he got a little more serious. And there was already another police car there, and there was 2 of them actually, and because it was 4 police officers when I got out of the car, and they brought me in front of this woman, and she was looking at my hands, my jacket, which the police were also interested in my jacket and my hands. I told them that I had gotten scratches on my hand from my cat. I used to play with the cat. I was young, I was still a teenager. And the cat liked scratching, so. But they found it interesting, and I was like, okay. So she was looking at me, and after about 3 seconds, I started to realize, well, holy crap. Not only did I just watch this thing with the wrong end about this guy who went through all this, and he was put in a lineup, and then got, wound up in jail. I'm like, just realized, well, this is my lineup, because that's what they're doing. They're putting me in a lineup. I was like, okay. And she thankfully, after about 9 to 10 seconds, which was a long 9 to 10 seconds. It was almost like time had stopped. I was like, oh. She said, oh no, that's not him. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was, totally freaked out at that point. And they let me go. And For the longest time after that, how can you forget a thing like that? Some people might say, well, it was 27 years ago, which it was. you know, it's one of the strangest coincidences I've ever heard of. Okay, it doesn't beat like the Lincoln Kennedy thing, but yeah, but it's still kind of very odd, and goes against normal situations. I thought it a little interesting, and maybe you might find it interesting. If you're interested in coincidence, there's a coincidence story that I have to offer, and that's it. Thanks.